All right, back at it. Another episode of the More To It podcast. I am the host, Jay Moore, with Hell Varsity Magazine, hellvarsity.com. And we are back with another golf episode, a golf pod. We've had a few on here. Everyone knows I am the golf junkie. Love the game, love to talk it. And I am joined today by one of my good buddies, Mr. Ryan Vermeer, the 2018 National Club Pro champion. He has played in the last 4 PGA championships and just got back from Winged Foot. My man, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So let's hop right into it. We're just talking about the setup, and you spent all week at Winged Foot. The rough was something else. How was that setup and trying to get ready for that golf tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I've told, countless people that, I don't think they did anything wrong with the setup. I think the course was fair. It just took a certain type of player to be able to play out of it. I mean, the fairways were so hard to hit that really no matter what strategy you use, you weren't going to hit a lot of fairways. Mm-hmm. The fairway, they were narrow, they were running out, the dog legs are in the perfect place. So you were inevitably going to hit balls in the rough and have to play out of the rough. That stuff was as thick as I've ever played out of and as long as I've ever played out of. And me personally, I just didn't have the strength to be able to really advance the ball much out of there. So, it definitely played into the hands of the big, strong guys that can, create a lot of speed and get the ball to jump out of the grass. But, it was not fun to play out of. And I did not feel the ball come off the club face very often when I was in there. It was just kind of like hitting into a wet salad and just seeing what you got out of it.
How have you played any greens like those?
Not really. I mean, they're pretty simple in the fact that they're all just from back to front. There's a few of them that have huge false fronts on the front, which you don't see very often. But outside of that, it's just basically a back to front slope. And there were definitely greens where you could drop it on the back edge and it would run all the way to the front. So it was a pretty severe slope. But the thing that made them really tricky is just kind of the movement within the green. They looked pretty simple from the fairway, but then when you got up on them, there was lots of little movements where, if you look at the yardage book, it was pretty easy to tell where the pins were going to be because there's like 3 spots that have flat spots, so there's just contours everywhere. So never really played anything quite like that. And I honestly, I thought the greens were awesome. I thought they were fair. They never got out of hand with the speed. So if you did the right thing and kept the ball underneath the hole, they really weren't horrible, but they're challenging for sure.
When you saw the course for the first time and you got your practice rounds there, what did you think winning score was going to be over par?
I thought for sure it would be over par. I guess, you take into account that, not everybody's going to be able to hit out of that rough, and, so that holding true was definitely the case. To do what Bryson did, obviously I think his strength, his speed, his golf swing is fairly steep. All the same length shafts. He's got a fairly steep angle of attack. He's one of the few guys that would be able to, kind of extricate himself out of the rough. And he was hitting drivers on holes where nobody else was hitting driver just to, get it up where he could hit a short shot out. So, I think he was definitely the exception to the rule, and his game plan, worked out really well for him. And I don't know that anybody but him, probably could have finished under par. Yeah.
Who were the other 2 guys you played with the first 2 days?
I played with Scott Hend from Australia and Danny McCarthy, who actually is a New York guy, Korn Ferry Tour player, who was coming off of, I think he finished like second, third in the Korn Ferry playoffs. So, his game was sharp.
Any of those guys that else make the cut?
Nope, we all struggled, and we all pretty much shot around the same thing. Scott Hend was, he was going along pretty good for a while, and then, kind of got caught up in the long grass and had a few things, kind of go the wrong. He hit it over the back of the green on the 10th hole on Friday, and he took an unplayable lie. And then he had to take a drop, and he was right up against the fence, and he whiffed it once. And then from there, pretty much, it was just basically it was an effort for him. You could tell he just wanted to get done, not have to come back Saturday morning and finish a round. So his meter of trying kind of went down pretty quick, but he was a great guy and we had a good time.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was trying to follow you along, but they had the TV coverage. You guys look like you're playing your very last hole with floodlights on.
Yeah, so the day before there was the group that finished on the back 9 did not get done playing. I think they had to finish putting out on 17 and then play hole number 18. So, we obviously knew that finishing on the back nine, we were going to be up against it. But, we kept our pace up pretty good. We were right on the group in front of us. And there wasn't a single guy in the group that had any desire to have to wake up on Saturday morning and come and play, because none of us were playing any good. I mean, I don't think any of us would have not come to finish, just because I'm not going to withdraw from the U.S. Open just on the account of not wanting to get up. But we definitely wanted to finish, so we played 15, 16, 17 pretty quick, and then I remember I putted out first on 17, and I ran over to the tee just so I could get a ball off the tee and get moving. But yeah, it was light enough to finish. I probably would have said 5-10 more minutes, but if we would have gone any more than that, there's no way we would have got done. But fortunately, there was a big light kind of back behind by the 10th tee box, and then there was a scoreboard right up in front of the green that when the scoreboard went to a certain screen, it was like a really white, bright light, and it lit the green up really nice. So it looked on TV, because I remember seeing myself, and there was a big long shadow, and that was obviously from the light.
Got it.
But it was, like I said, I probably could have gone 5-10 more minutes, but there wasn't much light out there, that's for sure.
Yeah, so when that TV shot comes up, you and Gary Woodland cross paths at Kansas. You guys obviously, when you're out there, play a lot of practice rounds together. Yourself, Gary Woodland, Dustin Johnson play a lot of practice rounds. And we'll talk about this a little bit, but he said you were the best player to ever come out of Kansas. How cool is that to have him, the reigning U.S. Open champ, make those comments? Unless you pay to put some in his pockets to make those comments, but I don't think that's the case.
No, definitely not. No, it's obviously awesome to to get praise from him. I mean, obviously, I've played a lot of golf with him, and I was fortunate enough to live in Lawrence when he was going to school, so I played a lot of golf with him, and he was kind of making his transition from basketball life into golf, and really, you could tell he had a razor sharp focus on what he wanted to accomplish with his golf, and he's been able to do it, which is pretty awesome to see. But I remember him, looking up to me, Chris Thompson, another teammate of mine who plays out there also. So now for me to be able to look at him kind of the same way he used to look at me, it's kind of interesting. But obviously I look up to him and use him for a lot of inspiration. I pick his brain a lot when we're out there, just to kind of see what he's doing, what he's thinking, how he decides to, navigate the holes, what he thinks is important around the green, stuff like that. I mean, the guy has been through it. He's turned over basically every stone you could turn over with the guys that he's worked with on his game. I mean, he's left nothing to chance, and obviously that shows because his results are there. So for him to say that to me about the things that I did when I was in college, it's really cool. And like I said, it's humbling in a way, because the guy is the reigning U.S. Open champion, and he's top 25 player in the world. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was very sweet to see. You're obviously, every time you've played in the last 4 PGA championships. This is your first U.S. Open, but you always got to play practice rounds with Gary, and DJ tends to tag along, Matt Kuchar every now and then. Just the experience of seeing those guys' games up front and personal.
It's it's not what you would, being somebody that knows a lot about the game and has played a lot of big-time events, nothing that they do surprises me, but at the same time, how easy they make it look, it is kind of surprising. When one of those guys steps up to hit a tee shot, it just doesn't look like they're going to hit a bad shot. It doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to, but they have such a good routine. They have such good fundamentals with setup and alignment and all those things. They make the game look way easier. I mean, I'm somebody that I'm sure people look at me and they might say the same thing, but like inside, I'm like, oh my God, I feel so uncomfortable. I'm always like, I feel like I'm a scrambled egg sometimes. But like when those guys are up there, like you literally are like, hey, he's gonna hit a perfect shot, and they just, the way they go about it, they're very business-like. They have fun. They chat and they tell stories and stuff like that. But like, they're working. Gary has a very strict routine of what he's doing. I mean, he's obviously sociable, but at the same time, like, he knows exactly what he's trying to get accomplished. When he gets to the course, he knows if he's going to work with one of his coaches at what time he's going to do it. I mean, those guys have it nailed down, and they have to, because they have media obligations and stuff like that. Playing with Dustin, obviously, again, somebody who has been around and knows what it takes to do what they do. I'm not surprised at how smart he is on the golf course and how intelligent his golf IQ is, so to speak.
And like some people would think that he's pretty aloof and just like out there and
exactly.
I just hit it, go find it, and hit it again.
And that's what I think people would be really surprised is he is extremely intelligent with how he plans to play a golf shot and knowing where to miss and where not to miss, and and his short game is really good. It's way different than people would think.
Yeah. So when you guys were out in San Francisco at Harding Park for the PGA, you guys were playing this chipping game that you guys play. We played, you and I played and rode in the same cart just a few weeks ago, and you explained it to me, but I've kind of forgot how it goes. Explain for the listeners this game you guys play because it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So practice rounds can tend to get boring, and you're always trying to figure out where hole locations might be, and you're trying to chip balls and putt balls to certain spots on the greens. And if you do it without like a purpose, it can tend to get really monotonous and really boring, and it's like you almost kind of have to do it. You're not really even trying. You're just kind of like, oh, there's a ball, and you just kind of hit it to like a corner of the green. So what these guys have come up with, and I think they started doing it just this season when they got out there and had, no fans, no spectators, stuff like that, so they had more time to kind of do this stuff. So each caddy, so there would be 3 of us in the group, and each caddy would go to the green. They would pick a spot where a hole location has been in the past or where they think a hole location might be on the green, and they'll either put one of the discs or they'll put a tee to signify that that's going to be the hole, and then they each have a ball from every player, and they just are like, okay, so if you're going to hit a shot to this pin, a typical miss is going to be into this area, whether it's a sand trap or short-sided in the rough or even short of the green into the fairway, wherever it may be, and they just throw the balls. Wherever the balls end up is where you got to hit it from, unless 2 balls end up like right next to each other and you just kick them away. But it's a great way to make the shot. You're still practicing the same way you used to, but now you actually have a purpose when you're hitting the shot. So each hole, there's 3 shots. You'll hit all 3. If you're the closest to the hole on 2 of the 3, you win the hole. And we play $10 a hole. If each person gets 1, so it's a 1-1-1 tie, then there will be a 4th shot. And one of the caddies will pick, where you hit it from, but then you actually hit to the hole that's cut in the green. It's a great way to do it. It makes practice way more fun. I mean, I think playing golf in general, when you're just playing to play, I don't really like it.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
tend to not focus very much. So
you'd have something on the line.
Yeah, I want something on the line. I want to make sure that I'm doing something, and to me, $10 a hole. I mean, okay, like if I lose every single hole, I could lose $180. Like I don't want to lose $180. I mean, those guys.
Yeah,
it's like a drop in the bucket.
That's in their couch cushions.
Yeah, it's a quarter in the back seat of the car. Like it's no big deal to them. But to me, it makes you focus and it makes you really want to get at it. And the other side of the coin is, it's pretty cool to take money off of Dustin Johnson or Gary Woodland or Matt Kuchar or whoever it may be out there. So it was really fun to play. I will definitely implement it more when I go play in big events, just because it's something that actually focus your brain, get you going.
So when you won the National Club Pro Championship at, is it Bayonet or Black Horse? Or did you play them both?
We played both. The 3 rounds were Bayonet and the off round was at Black Horse.
Okay, but you win that, but you get to play in 6 PGA Tour events as of that. Favorite event you played in out of those 6, and then I want to ask you who's the most impressive player you've still seen, but you get to play with Gary Woodland, Dustin Johnson, those are but you did get to play with Cameron Champ, I think, in your very first one at Sanderson Farms and down in Jackson, Mississippi. But those 6 events you got to play in, just the experience of doing that and kind of feeling like you're back there out in the tour.
My favorite event was probably the Valspar. My whole family was there. My parents came down. My wife, my kids were down there. So just the whole, and actually my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and brother-in-law came down also. So just the fact that we were all down there.
Valspar is the one in Tampa, right?
Tampa and at Copperhead, which is an amazing golf course. I mean, there was a lot of reasons why that one was really cool. I actually played pretty well. I didn't make the cut, but I didn't miss by much. But there's another cool thing about that is it's really amazing, and I don't think a lot of people would realize how quick they can change a golf course. They want golf courses to play a certain way. They may not necessarily be that way on Monday, but they're always progressing to get them there, by Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I remember playing on Monday down the Valspar in a Pro-Am. Golf course was very receptive. I mean, I had mud on my ball lots of times. Hitting into the greens, you could basically hit it wherever you want, and the ball's going to stop. I shoot 5 under, make like 6 birdies and a bogey in the Pro-Am, and I was just like, oh, this is great. I love this place, you know. and then I played on Tuesday and played with Gary, and it was raining, so the golf course was still soft, wet, very receptive. And I didn't get to play on Wednesday because they always have the Pro-Am, and I'm not, you know, being a non-member of the tour, I'm not part of that. So on Wednesday, I go to like, you know, the amusement park with my family and come back, and then like late in the afternoon, I came back and I just hit balls. And you could tell on the range that, you know, it had really dried out, but, you know, you have no idea really what's going to be like. And then I didn't play Thursday until the afternoon. And it was, the weather had gotten warmer, the wind was blowing a little bit, and the sun was like shining bright. And I remember going down the first hole, and I hit a good drive, a good layup, and I'm pitching into the green, and I hit this shot into the green. I'm like, oh, it's going to be good. It hits like 5 feet from the hole and goes 30 feet past the hole. I'm like, oh my God. Like, this golf course is nowhere near what it was 2 days ago when I practiced. So very eye-opening experience to see what they were able to do to change the golf course. You know, but that was a blast. And then as far as like players, like you said, Cameron Champ, honest to God, he maybe was the most impressive, and probably because, I mean, he won the golf tournament. So, I mean, I'm out there playing my first ever actual PGA Tour event. I'd played in PGA Championships at that point, but I'd never played in a PGA Tour event, just a regular event. And lo and behold, I'm playing a practice round, I think, with Nate Lashley, another Nebraska kid, on Tuesday. And he had looked on his phone, got a deal that the tee times were out, and he started laughing. And he's like, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, oh, you got Champ. And I was like, oh, sweet.
You're hitting first.
Yeah, because I mean, I knew who he was, and I knew about him, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be fun to see this up close and personal. And he might have played for 36 holes as solid a golf as I've ever seen anybody play, even watching people play on TV. And I mean, we've had the fortunate, you know, pleasure of watching Tiger Woods play, and virtually when he was playing great golf, I mean, you didn't miss a single shot that he hit. I mean, they covered him from the moment he left the practice tee to the moment he signed his card on after 18. So I mean, you got to basically feel like you watched all of his golf. And when I played with Cameron Champ, it was definitely something that I had never seen before. His iron game was awesome. His putting was awesome. He chipped it and pitched it really good. But the way he drove the golf ball was like out of this world. I mean, the speed that he creates and the trajectory that he hits the golf ball does not compute to 340-yard drives. I mean, he hits it like 25, 30 feet in the air, it looks like sometimes, and you're just like, that ball cannot go that far, but it just doesn't ever come out of the air. I mean, it is unbelievable. Usually balls that go that low, you know, get on the ground and they have to roll. He flies at 330 and hits it like 50 feet in the air. It's crazy. But yes, I mean, he really was one of the most impressive guys that I've been able to watch play up close and personal. How
you play last year the Bethpage for the PGA Championship to make the cut? How sweet was that?
That was awesome. I mean, honestly, that turned into, you know, one of the craziest days of my life too. Just because I played good on Thursday, played really good on Friday until the back nine. The wind started blowing. I think honestly after 27 holes I might have been in the top 15. And all of a sudden I get to the back nine and I could not get the ball in the fairway. The wind was blowing off the left like it seemed like on every hole, and I just kept hitting in the rough. And not quite as bad as last week at Wingfoot, but the rough at Bethpage was definitely rough. And I struggled, and I'm just like, I'm limping trying to get it in. I'm just like, and I remember on 18, I hit what I thought was a perfect drive, and it landed in the edge of the fairway, kicked left up against the bunker and the long fescue grass. And at this point, I was kind of sweating it because I knew that I had crept back and was kind of really teetering on the edge. And I remember asking Miles, my caddy, I said, well, what do I need to do? Because I just wanted to chip it out into the fairway. And he's like, a birdie would be great, but he's like, I think you definitely need to make a par. And I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I'm like dead serious. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, well, the only chance that I have at getting this ball on the green is to take a 9-iron and just hit it really hard. Worst case scenario, it still is a layup in front of the green. But I'm like, I don't think I can get it to the green, but I'll try. So I just hit a full rip 9-iron, and I hit it pretty good for the lie that I had, and it came up like 15, 20 yards short of the green. I pitched it up onto the green about, I probably had 7 feet straight up the hill, and fortunately I was putting really well, and it was a pretty easy putt, all things considered, and I made it, and felt really, really good about things. And then go into the clubhouse, and you start seeing people, and I actually ate lunch with Brooks Koepka's dad, and had him and a bunch of other guys were congratulating me. They're like, "Oh, there's no way you're going to miss the cut. Like, you're totally fine." And so I left the golf course feeling really good. And then I get home and I'm watching on TV, and I'm just like, for hours I'm refreshing. Yeah. And it's looking horrible. I'm like, what is going on? So I remember at one point I just kind of threw my phone into the corner, didn't want to look at it anymore, and then it literally took until maybe like 1 or 2 groups was left on the golf course before it actually came down to where I was going to make the cut. So it went from being a really glorious day to stressed out majorly, and then finally getting the good news. And to play in golf tournaments like that, it's like a dream come true. But then to obviously play well enough to prove that you're worth being there and all that stuff. I mean, those are things that you dream of as a kid. Obviously, when you're a kid, you're dreaming about doing it to win the golf tournament. But at the same time, like, to play 72 holes in a major tournament against guys that are doing it week in and week out all the time, it's a huge accomplishment, and I definitely don't take it lightly.
That was awesome. We look at, so you played at a Division I golf. You come out, you play for many years. Won what was the Buy.com tour. You see you see the best of the best, man. Like we said, you played with Gary, you played with DJ, you played with Kuchar. I mean, you just go down the list, and you've seen it. And you're very knowledgeable. You teach out at Director of Instruction at Happy Hollow Golf Club in Omaha, Nebraska, and a lot of good people up there. Shout out to my man, Gil Russell. He's one of my favorite people ever. You have these discussions, so amongst people who. Why isn't so and so struggle? What's the difference between the elite AMs and then guys that do it for a living on the Korn Ferry, and the guys that actually can make a good career and make millions of dollars on the PGA Tour? You kind of were talking about they do the fundamentals right. They do all these certain things. You got to see it, and you got to do it and see it up front. What do you think separates those guys who are right there and the guys that just make it happen and make a career out of it?
A lot of it's timing. I think there's a lot, and I mean the number of guys that have the potential to do that it's staggering. I mean, there's so many good players, but to make it happen at the right time, to where you get your breakthrough, and you kind of start rolling it into something really good, that obviously is the first thing you got to get. I mean, it's not given to anybody. They don't just let you go out there and do it. I mean, you got to earn your way one way or another. Some guys get a little bit of a jump start with exemptions and that kind of thing, but at the same time, like, you're not guaranteed anything. So you got to take advantage of it, and the timing's got to be right. Outside of that, I honestly think that it's a mentality as much as it is a physical gift to hit shots, make putts, do all those things. You have to somehow, some way, convince yourself and give yourself permission to play good and to be that guy. I mean, I think there's, like I said, I think you could take 15 guys off the Korn Ferry Tour and throw them down in Jupiter, Florida, and have them go play money matches with Tiger, Rory, McIlroy, and all those guys, and they'd hold their own. They'd do fine. Those guys they're really close to being just as good as them. The difference is, to be a star, to be somebody that goes out and does the things that the top players in the world do, there is a mindset and a mentality that they say that this is what I'm going to do. Myself personally, when I'm playing around Nebraska in the section events and in the in the stuff around here, I basically go to the golf tournament saying to myself that if I play good, there isn't a single guy out here that's going to have an easy time beating me today. It doesn't mean anybody, can't go out there and do it. But in my mind, I believe that if I play what I feel is a good round of golf, there isn't anybody that's going to beat me. And that's the way those guys feel, when they stand on the tee with Tiger Woods. They're like, man, if I play good today, he ain't going to beat me. It's not everybody can walk to the first tee and have that and actually believe it. You can maybe say it to yourself, but to actually believe that you are that guy, that's a hard thing to do. So I think the biggest separator, it comes down to the mental belief and giving yourself actual permission to go out there and succeed. I mean, I just think some people are scared to succeed. I would love to get to a point where I can walk to the tee at a big golf tournament like that and just be like, man, just play the game that you can play and you're going to beat these guys. Like, that's a hard thing to do. But if I could ever do it, it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I can kind of equate to this because I always steal the line from, I think it's the 4-Year-Old Virgin and Steve Carell's character, like, you can't put you-know-what on the pedestal. Because the guy's trying to get laid, but he just has this, thinks of it as this obscure out there object that he can't achieve.
Can't achieve it.
Right, and they say you can't put you-know-what on the pedestal. So when I get to the NFL, 4th-round draft pick, and I struggle a little early on. Well, I should say, early in my career, I had to learn a new position, which was tough. But again, all of a sudden I put football on this pedestal, like, oh my God, I'm in the NFL. Like, I have to do this. I have to be perfect. I can't mess. It's like, no, it's football.
Yeah,
just go play football. You've been doing it your whole life. Just go play.
Exactly.
You almost put too much pressure on yourself because not necessarily expectations, kind of. I mean, I was a 4th-round draft pick, but you put expectations on yourself, and all of a sudden it's like, you mess up and you beat yourself up. I mean, you could make, in a practice or a game, I mean, you could have 60 great plays, but you mess up twice, and like, you tend to focus on those two things that you mess up on, and you beat yourself up over it. And you got to realize people make mistakes. So I see what you're saying. You can equate. They put that on the pedestals. Those guys turn pro, and they're like, oh my God, I gotta play good every week.
Yeah, and when it comes to the expectations and that kind of thing, it's like you put a lot of your self-worth into your results and what you do as a profession. So like, if you're an insurance salesman, I mean, if your sales are bad and you have a down year, like, obviously that affects you personally just as much as it does professionally. And the same thing goes for a golfer. I mean, and a football player. I mean, if you're out there and you don't perform the way that you want to perform or feel like you should perform, and you kind of had, you got all these sponsors behind you that are, touting you up and doing all these things, and next thing you know, you're like, well, man, am I really proving that I'm worth all these things that they're giving me? So it starts, those are the kinds of things that creep into your head. And I just look at, and obviously, the life position that some of those guys are in, I mean, they don't have to worry about how much money they make on the tour because they make so much money away from golf also. But to be able to just disregard, what happens on the golf course and just leave it at the golf course, it takes a special person to be able to do that. And for you, like when you played in the NFL, it's probably not the easiest thing to do. You're like, I'm a 4th-round draft pick. I mean, I need to be out there playing. I need to be starting in these games. I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. Well, man, the fact that you're there is pretty amazing in itself. Every single guy that's out there has the same feeling you do, even if they were an unsigned draft pick. I mean, at some point or another, those guys are the elite of the elite. And I think that the mental aspect of allowing yourself to achieve and kind of being able to, once you leave the practice field or leave the golf course or whatever it is, like, actually leave it behind. Like, I think most people that have a 9-to-5, when they leave their work, a lot of them are pretty good at leaving it. They don't really carry it with them. As athletes, I think we carry it with us a little bit more because people see it. People are watching. I wouldn't say that everybody's a celebrity, but there's fans. So somebody's watching what we're doing, and you feel like you might be letting them down or whatever. I mean, it's a different burden to carry, I think. So I think mentally, that's probably the biggest separator, way more so than the actual physical ability to hit a shot or make a putt.
Yeah, I always talk about the business of the NFL. I think it's one of the nastiest, most grueling, businesses out there. But then you look at golf, and it's like, that has to, I don't know, it is what it is. Like, if you're not if you don't get the hole if you don't get the ball in the hole in the quickest shots possible, you're not going to make money.
Right.
At least in football, if you play and your team loses, you're still going to get a check for that week.
Right.
You're going to get your check. That's you get your 17 checks for the season. You're going to get paid. Like, you don't make a cut at the tour event. You're out on your now. Granted, I'm kind of talking about the mini tour guys, the corn. The money on the Corn Ferry Tour is not great unless you're top 10.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, remember like top 5.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
not great.
you're making $100,000 if you win it.
Yep.
But I think would you agree or disagree that probably average expenses are for a guy playing full time the Corn Ferry Tour $150,000 a year?
I would say it's definitely over 100. I'd say 150 would be on the high end because you can do a lot of things creatively with staying at houses and stuff like that. But you're spending a lot of money, especially the way that tour is now. I mean, there's travel. They go overseas.
They don't make it easy on you.
Yeah, they go overseas, and it's not like when I played 20 years ago, I got in the car and I drove because it made sense. I mean, I went from one side of the country to the other side of the country, but it never was from one week to the next. It was like we'd play 3 weeks in a row kind of in this area, then you'd maybe make a 5-hour drive and play 3 weeks in a row in another area. They don't do that now. I mean, it's insane. You don't hop in a car and drive that tour anymore.
You spend the first 2 weeks in the Bahamas,
Yep.
and then it's like and then there's some Latin America.
Panama, Colombia, Mexico.
And then you finally get to Florida, but it's like, oh, we're in Florida this week, and guess what? Next week we're in
Utah.
Yeah. It's like,
it's nuts.
Yeah, it is. No, it's just because you don't play well, you don't make money. And it is grueling. I mean, that's just the pressure because just getting to know and playing competitive golf, and it's just like that's the last thing you want to do is put pressure on yourself to hit a golf shot. You want to go out there and play, see fairway, hit fairway, see a green, hit green, see hole, try to put the ball in the hole, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I've only made a couple cuts this year. I am in the red by 45,000. If I don't play well, my sponsor that I do have at home could potentially drop me. My wife's already pissed at me because I've been on the road for 4 or 5 weeks in a row and I haven't been playing well, and she's at home with the kids. So it's like you got everything stacked against you, and then you still got to try to damn golf shot. I mean, that's brutal.
There's a lot going on, and honestly, like I remember coming out of college, and I put myself on a pretty high pedestal. I walked in pretty elite company, being an All-American. Had some golf writers that said some pretty nice things about me that I was, somebody to kind of look out for. I left college thinking that I was going to go play professional golf and make a splash right away and do a lot of really good things. Well, it's never easy. I remember playing, I made it through the finals of Q School, my very first try, which was pretty awesome. I don't know if it was a great thing, but whether it was or it wasn't, I don't know. But I mean, you leave that and you put expectations on yourself that you're going to go do all these great things. Well, then it doesn't really go very well. Well, half the problem is I started looking at guys that have been out there for a long time. I mean, I was a fan of the game forever. So I'm playing and hitting golf balls next to guys who I knew all about them. And I'm like, well, God, I don't do it as good as him. Like, so all of a sudden you start thinking you need to be better, which, right, wrong, or indifferent, it still gets in your head and it plays games with you. And then, so once I kind of left that tour and lost my status, I started playing the mini tours. Well, the same thing's going on, except now you're playing for less money, for sure. And you're relying on sponsors and all this stuff. And I remember putting so much pressure on myself to make cuts and to make money that, like, my mind was always like, what's the cut going to be? So your target score is always like, what's the cut going to be? Well, guess what? You're going to basically be around that number all the time. So you're going to play golf with pressure like every single shot you hit, because you're never going to allow yourself to just go play golf and get in the lead. So finally, I don't know how long it took me. It was a couple of years, but finally I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, but like I always am right around the cut line, and I either make it barely or I miss it barely, but it was really wearing on me. And I don't know if I talked to somebody or if I just came up with, in my own head, that I was like, I just have to stop thinking about it, because I had a lot of people that were supporting me, and financially they weren't going to like just bail on me right away. I mean, they were going to let me try to do what I wanted to do for a fairly decent amount of time. So I just said, stop worrying about the money. Like, the money's going to be fine. And as soon as I stopped worrying about it, I think I played 2.5 seasons in a row on the Adams Tour or whatever it was, and I made every single cut. Didn't mean I always played great, but I never missed a cut for 2.5 seasons, which even on that tour, that's a pretty good accomplishment, because there's a lot of good players, and basically, I mean, there were times you'd have to shoot 4 or 5 under par to make the cut. So I mean, it wasn't like it was a pushover thing to do. But that, again, that was just a mental thing that I had to get over the hurdle of trying to stop thinking about money. Like, if I miss this putt, I'm going to miss the cut, and now I'm not going to make any money. I was like, God, it kills you if that's what you think about.
All right, we'll get you out of we've been going here for 35 minutes, and we're recording this before the a very famous pro member event out here at the Great Firethorn Golf Course in Lincoln. So what's ahead? What's on the schedule the rest of the year? Then assuming that 2021 gets back to normal.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully rather quicker, than later. So what's the schedule look like for Ryan Vermeer the rest of the year?
I have a few events left around here, section events. Got a few things to kind of wrap up the season. I will more than likely go down to Florida at some point in December to play some PGA Winter Series events. I think I've got a shot at potentially winning the National Player of the Year again. I got to have a few things fall into my favor, obviously, for that to happen, because there's plenty of guys out there that are making a run for that. But I do think that I have a chance, and if I perform well in some of the Winter Series events, that obviously would help those chances immensely. And then outside of that, just kind of get through the winter. Hopefully 2021 will be a little better year than, or at least a little more predictable.
Yeah, no shit.
We can kind of get out of the fear of, what's going to happen next, and, get on with our lives a little bit. But got the PGA Club Pro is supposed to be played in Port St. Lucie at PGA Golf Club. If all goes well there, we'll move on to the PGA Championship at Hilton Head, I believe.
Is it at where Rory won it the last time I was there?
Yep. Ocean Course.
Yeah, Kiawah Island. There we go.
So yeah, that's the next kind of big thing that is on my radar. So everything between now and then will just essentially be trying to get ready to perform well at PGA Club Pro so that I can qualify for another PGA Championship. Getting older, getting slower, got humbled by the rough at Winged Foot, so I think one of the things that I need to make a priority is somehow I need to get stronger and get a little more, in shape, because just a fact of life.
Yep. Father
Time is winning and I'm losing at this point, so I need to make a little more of an effort to get some strength back.
I can help you out with that.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
All right, brother. Verm, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
A Huda Media Production.